We're back. It's Sew Together Tuesday. I am Teresa Coates. We are here live today. It's Tuesday, week of Road to California. And so we are here for a special kind of Sew Together Tuesday. We're so excited you are joining us. We are dual live streaming over on the Clover page because we are at the Clover offices today, and we are on our Shannon Fabrics page. So we're so excited to be here and be talking to all of you about all sorts of things today. It'll be a fun one. So again, I'm Teresa Coates. I'm the National Educator for Shannon Fabrics, and we'll be bringing Steve on later, and he's with Clover, and I'll introduce you in a little bit. But we wanted to do a special thing today. Like I said, it's Road to California. So we wanted to talk a little bit about some of the products that we have and some of the products they have and how they work so well together. So about a year and a half ago, we came up, I say we, but really, I think it was Julie at the offices, came up with the idea of a beginner box. And so we have this kit that is fabulous. Can I show you guys? You see, is it upside down, right side from that side? So this is a cuddle kit that is called the Beginner Box, and it is a super fun little box. It actually contains 3 1-yard cuts. So there's 3 different fabrics. You get a luxe cuddle, a print cuddle, and a solid cuddle. You get 1 yard of each, and then in that you actually get to make 6 different projects. So the thing that we wanted to do is that we could get you started making some simple projects, but also we wanted to give you the right tools for the process, okay? So I want to show you some of the projects that you can make for that, all right? And oh, I should probably tell them, share the video, you'll win one of these kits, okay? So at the end, we'll be giving one of these guys away. You can win it. We'll let you choose from the 3 different variations that we have, and we'll send you a beginner box, all right? So Michael, if you wouldn't mind throwing up that little image with the different things. So these are all the projects that you get to make with this one kit, okay? And it has kind of walks you through all of the different processes. So one of the first things that we're going to start with is the super simple scarf. You're also going to be able to make an infinity scarf, the throw pillow, the easy peasy blanket, a soft ball, and a cuddle cube. So we kind of work you through all of the really easy things to get it a little bit more complex with those 3D shapes. Super fun project, and all of them work really well. So let me show you in person what some of these are, okay? So I'm gonna move my kit over here. Inside of it, you get this little book. Also, these don't have the sticker because they're older, but on them, there'll also be a sticker that has a QR code that you can go and watch all the videos. So I've made special videos for all of these projects that you can learn them, okay? So it includes a bunch of information about sewing with Cuddle, including the flower head pins. First page, bam, important. Okay, so all of the tools you're gonna need, how to deal with the Cuddle mess, how to cut them out, and then instructions on all of these projects, all right? So I'm going to show you real quick, and then we'll put them to the side. So this is the super simple scarf. Okay.
With those cute little fringes.
With the little tassels there. Yep. Super easy. Little throw pillow. A little throw. So this is a great one. This is basically the same process making a large throw. So if you're new to this, this is a great project to start with and to practice all of those different techniques. We'll talk about how those work with some of these tools that I use on here too. Super duper nice. Okay, so it blends the print with the luxe cuddle, and an infinity scarf, which if you've watched Sew Together Tuesday at all, you've probably seen this video. Okay, the infinity scarf, here's the little cube. Hopefully this gives you like a size idea, okay, on what you're going to make. So I really love this because it does walk you through all of the different techniques that you're going to need to be able to make almost any cuddle project after that. So it's a great starting point for that. And that's why it's a beginner box. So like I said, we have all of these projects. I'm going to do the thing that I do. Sorry. Okay. So we have all of those projects that are finished, but inside this kit, I want to show you. You did say it's in here, right, Hawk? You checked?
I did check.
Okay. So inside, these are 1 yard cuts. There's 3 of them. And then inside it, you get a book that has the patterns and the projects for the color variation that you got. Okay, so each box will get a different, you'll get to see what it looks like in the fabric that you got. Okay.
This is the third.
And that's the third one. So let's flip that over so you can see the projects in those colors. Okay, so there's all these different variations. And then the other thing you get in here is you get this like little beginner pack of tools. All right, and we worked with several vendor partners to get this because they asked me what are the most important things that they need to have to be able to get started with sewing with Cuddle. And there are a few things that you're going to want that are different than if you're just sewing with cotton. Okay, so one of those is going to be your needle. And Steve promised we will talk about needles later. So we'll talk about this. You want a 90-14 stretch needle because it's a knit fabric. All right, and we want to make sure that we've got the appropriate machine needle for that. You're also going to want to make sure that you've got polyester thread, and my favorite is the Metrosene from Mettler. It's really nice and strong, and you always want to use the polyester thread when you're working with Cuddle. Same reason, because it's a knit, it stretches, and the polyester thread is super strong. Okay. The other thing you're going to need is flower head pins. All right. So these are the ones from Clover. We've partnered with them, and we have put in Clover head pins in each package. So sometimes they look like this, and sometimes they look like this. But if I'm right, they're the exact same thing. So we'll talk about that, what the difference is, and between all of their pins. All right. So that's what we're here to do, is to talk about tools. These are the basics you're going to need, and we're going to make sure that you've got them in the pack just for you. Okay. So that's the beginner box. The beginner box is it's a great stepping stone. But once you've learned to work with Cuddle, there's about a million things you can do. And what I've learned is that along the way is that having the right tool for that project, whatever it is that you're going to be making, having the right tool or notion is super duper important. It makes all the difference. And it's one of the things that really, it took me a while to figure out just in the sewing world, is they make all of these different tools and all of these different needles and threads and rulers and rotary cutters. And why do I need that one if I already have this? So today we're going to talk to Steve. So come on in, Steve. So this is Steve Butler. He is we did it earlier, the
Educator, Director of Education.
Director of Education. It's a fancy title. He's also the educator. So he's the one.
They gave me that title to make me feel important.
Did it work?
Yeah, I feel important.
Oh, good. Well, we're excited to have Steve here today. We have bumped into each other a million times at shows because we both do shows. So at the birthday bash and at Quilt Festival and Road to California. So anywhere that people come, we're there. We always see each other. Hi. So today we're working together, and I'm really excited about it. Thanks for doing this.
So am I. And I'd really like to start out by repeating something you've already said. It's so essential that you have the right tools and you use them correctly, because that'll really enhance the creative process.
Yes.
So today what we want to do is talk about any of the tools, needles, threads, any questions you might have. This is the time to ask. Yeah,
he knows a lot about it. So I know the sewing stuff. So I have that dexterity is where I know how to sew it. He knows why you need to use that tool. So my experience has been I've used one thing and I've liked it better, so then I recommend it to you guys. He's got the actual insider information on why it's better for whatever. Okay. All right. So let me get a couple of these out of the way. So let's start with the pins, because that's what I like the most. So this is what I always tell people when we do this, is that there are difference in the pins. There's difference in quality between brands, and Clover just makes the best from any that I've used. The flower head pins are one that people tend to lose heads and they get really frustrated. And the Clover pins, I have lost one head, maybe two, in the last 5 years. So it's really, really rare. And I think that those were what I call magic pins that I've sewed over a couple times.
Well, they're great pins because they're easy to manipulate. There's something to hold on to.
The pins are great.
And you can put them exactly where you want them.
Yep.
The thing I always tell people about pins is if you're pinning any type of fabric, whether it's a quilt or just a couple of layers of chiffon or something like that, if the pin is bending, it's too fine.
Yes, exactly.
So just go up to a heavier weight pin.
Yes, so let's talk about pins, and I'll show you. So Hawk, if you want to come down here, we'll move some of this stuff and we'll show the difference in the pins. So am I right that these are actually the same, heaviness?
Those are all different.
These are all different.
Yeah.
Okay.
So one's an extra fine, and then there's a medium, and then these are the heavy ones.
Right. And then what are these? Are these going to be, because they're that flower, easy grip, large, heart-shaped finish? I think they're the same stiffness as these. That's not probably the technical.
So this is the lightweight ones.
Yeah, these are the fine ones. Okay. So a lot of times when I go to shops, stores will have these, and I tell people to get flower head pins, and they get flower head pins, but flower head pins are different. Oh, here's the information. Here it is. So it's
trying to get it out of the glare. There we go.
So 0.5 0.45 millimeters. That's the width of the actual metal.
Sure. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. The diameter. And then this other one is a medium, so it's the 0.55.
There we go. And there's the information. So 0.55.
So these two are the same.
These two
just
are the
different
same.
colors.
Good. Phew. So I've been telling people I want to make sure that's right. So these are better for cuddle. These are really great when you're working with something like you said, chiffon
just cottons
or
are, you know,
cotton, embrace, the double gauze that we sell. Anything that's a lightweight, these will almost inevitably bend. These guys here will almost inevitably bend if you use them with cuddle. And then they're
Right.
useless. You got to throw them away. So buy the stronger ones. I almost wanted to say better, and they're not better. They're just stronger. And they're for different things. So if you're using a silk, you would want to use these because the hole isn't going to be as big. If you use this in silk, you're going to leave holes in it. So
yeah, that's the important thing. To be certain to reduce the invasiveness on your fabric, you always use the finest pin or sewing machine needle. Same thing. You always use the finest that you can use.
That's great. Okay, so I'm going to show you here. So if we can come in here and see. So this is one out of my little Clover box. This is the way I tell people to buy them. If you are going to do cuddle quilt or a lot of throws, this gives you 100. Is that right? Yeah, 100 pins in here. So it's a good amount of them. These have 20 pins on them. But these often get confused when I'm in classes because this and this looks a lot alike. But they are different. This one, the box is, how big is it? Those are 0.55 and these are 0.7.
Yeah, they're significantly larger.
So they're significantly larger. Yeah, that's a big jump. Okay, so let me show you.
And if you're doing a quilt with denim or something like that, then you obviously would have to use the larger size.
Right, exactly. And I found that when I'm using it with cuddle and like a couple layers of cuddle and a batting, this one is kind of bendy. This one is the larger one. See, it's the same on both sides. This is red on one side and peach on the other. Okay,
Let's do that again. That didn't show up as well as I would have liked it. There we go.
There's the red. So here, let me see if I can get it to twist. There we go.
That was great.
Okay, and here's the other one, and it's just peach. All right, so the peach is the little bit bigger one. I'm gonna try to bend that. You can see it doesn't really bend at all. Okay, that's because this one is just, it's, what did you say? It's the diameter,
It's the diameter of the shaft.
needle here. Okay, so it's thicker, which is why it doesn't bend.
And you also need to make sure that with the quality needle, it's very smooth, it's polished, so when it slides right into your fabric. So if you're having trouble pushing it through the fabric, then it's a brand thing that you need to check.
That is 100% true. And I will say this is the difference when I'm in a class and we're working with people and they're struggling with the pinning, because almost always I get people like, oh, you make it look so easy. It just slides right through. And I'm like, yeah, but part of it is the actual quality of the pin. A good one will be nice and sharp and slide right in. And a pin that isn't as good of quality, you'll kind of struggle to get it in and through your fabric. It isn't you, okay? It really is the pin. The pin needs to be stronger, smoother. I've gotten them from other brands too that are not sharpened on the end.
That's right.
So they kind of snag, and I've never had them snag from Clover. So really, like, you guys have heard me talk about how much I love the stuff so much, and it's because the quality has been consistently really good. So I love the pins. That's good information. So we talked a little bit. Is there any questions about the pins?
Not yet.
Okay, so make sure that you do answer, throw in your questions, put them up into the chat, and we will get them answered because he knows a lot. I know a little bit. He knows more. Okay.
He's making me feel important.
They told me to. So no, just kidding. All right. So pins. We talked a little bit about needles, and we had a little discussion before about the sizes. So these are by the size of the shaft, the diameter of the metal, how thick that is. Okay, these are our SCHMETZ pins that are included in the beginner kit, and they're the ones that we recommend all the time for cuddle. They're 90-14 stretch needles. So what makes this different from any of these other needles that I have? Like, why would I not want to use, what's the difference between like a universal 70-10?
Okay, well, first of all, when you're looking at the numbers, the 90-14, again, this is the actual size of the width of the blade, the width of the needle, how wide that is. So there's actually two measurements there. The first measurement is just a physical measurement. And so a size 90 is 0.9 millimeters wide. Okay. We multiply by 100 so we can get rid of the decimal. So we don't have to say 0.90.
Right.
Okay. So we have 75 is a 0.75, 80 is 0.8. The second needle, the second number is there's a lot of different names for it, but it's actually the Singer number.
Oh.
When the people at SCHMETZ came up with using, the first time it was called a number metric or just the metric measurement. They said, who is the other major manufacturer of needles in the world? And at the time, it was Singer.
Oh.
So they matched their needle against the Singer needle of the same size. And Singer didn't use a measurement. They used a designation.
Got
so
it.
a 75.
Like a clothing size,
That's
or
right.
just a number.
So the 75 is a Singer 11, an 80, 12, 90, 14. That's what those two numbers are.
I never knew what that second number was.
Yeah. So what they did is all the people using Singer needles now knew what size SCHMETZ needle to use. It was really good marketing.
That is really good marketing.
Yeah.
So I will tell you the other thing that they did, that if you look at these, let me see if I can get these in my hand so you can see them okay with the colors, is SCHMETZ does this color coding. And they give you we had the book in there that talks about the different color coding, and there's information about it online. I know that the yellow and blue band on this middle one is an 80-12, or sorry, a 90-14 stretch needle. Okay, this one is actually a 70-10, and this one was a 100, whatever the number is there. Okay, so this one, these are 3 different needles, and you can see the difference in the size there. So a 70, a 90, and a 100. Okay, you can see that pretty well in there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can see how thick they get. So that's a question I get a lot, is that people want to know, why do I have to use a 90-14? And I'm like, because it's thicker.
Well,
excuse me, it'll get through the fabric.
And something to keep in mind is as the needle gets wider, the eye gets wider. So that's why we want to do that. A quick tip for you that I remember every now and then, a commercial sewer told me once, if you want to make sure the needle is large enough for the thread so it doesn't fray the thread when you're doing sewing, is take your thread, put it through the needle and hold it up level with the ground, and put the needle over here on the lower one side 45 degrees, and the needle should slide down the thread.
Oh.
And then you know it's large enough.
Got it, because if the thread is thicker, I could imagine it's going to stop. It's not going to be able to slide through.
Or rougher.
Oh, interesting. Or rougher. Right, like a metallic thread would have a hard time. And I know they make metallic needles. Right, they make needles for all of those different things.
Because you know, when the needle goes down, it comes up, the hook grabs the thread, and the take lever pulls it back through. So a little spot on that thread will go back and forth through the eye of the needle maybe 35 times. So if there's a lot of friction there, that frays your thread. And a lot of times we blame the thread. Right. The thread is all frayed and falling apart, but it's because we're using the wrong size needle.
Got it. Interesting.
And when you talk about the stretch needle, it has a different point. It has a medium ball point, so it's not cutting any fibers.
Right.
It pushes them aside. It's got a little different scarf, and it tries to present that loop out there. So when the hook comes by on our sewing machine, we don't get any skip stitches.
Right, because that's exactly what happens when you sew with a universal needle, or especially like a microtex needle. It's a totally different point at the end, and so that's when you get skip stitches. And sometimes people are like, well, I'll just go over the seam twice. And I'm like, yes, but then like, who says it's not going to skip at the same place? And also just get a nice, good stitch from the very beginning. And it partly is knowing what tools are the most important. Some tools are kind of luxury items, and some are really important. And needles, I can't even remember what a pack of needles goes for these days.
$1.79.
Okay, yeah. I was like, yeah, $2. It's really nothing in the big picture of being able to get a quality product in the end and being able to be happy with your finish.
And I always tell people it's an absolutely essential part to the sewing process. And you think how much you spend on a machine, how much you spend on fabric, how much you spend. And then we try to go cheap on needles.
Then we try to go cheap on needles and rotary cutters.
Yeah, exactly. These are rotary cutter forever.
Right, exactly. It's like, don't change the needle and don't change your blade. No, please change your needle often. They say every 8 hours. Right?
You know, and if you're doing a quilt or something with multiple layers and batting, and you're going over double seams, it's going to wear out a little sooner. If you hit a pin or something, just change it. Changing the needle is the quickest, fastest, easiest way to improve the quality of every stitch.
Absolutely. And I feel like it's one of those things that it's such a little cost to do it that just change that. And you're right. I think that's one thing that people often don't do is when they hit the needle or hit a pin. One, don't sew over your pins. Okay. Don't do it. But if they do, you accidentally hit a pin. It's happened to me. It is really important that you just change that needle right there, because you have inevitably bent it slightly.
Don't reach up and touch it, because I mean, the distance between the hook and the scarf on your needle is 0.05 millimeters. So just a little, I mean, that's the width of a hair. Yeah. And so just a little bend will cause that needle to hit your hook, and it'll put a burr on your hook, or it cuts your thread, it causes problems. Right. Change the needle.
Change the needle. It'll just prevent all of those other problems that then require somebody to fix your machine. Okay. Excellent. Thank you. Okay, and we talked about
She's making me feel important.
I love it. Like, he has information I don't have. This is so good for me. I love learning. I really do. So we talked too about the needles and the thread, and you were talking about the thread sizes, and thread sizes, the weight of the thread. As the number goes up, the thread gets thinner.
Exactly. One way to think about when you hear the term 40 weight thread, what you can do is you take thread just off your spool onto a scale, for example, and you get 1 gram, and you stretch that out. And if it measures 40 meters, that's what a 40 weight thread is. So if we take another finer thread, we put it on the scale till we add 1 gram, and we stretch it out, it's 80 meters. It's twice as long, but it's the same physical amount of thread. So it had to change.
Right.
It had to get thinner.
Yeah, it's smaller.
Or if it only goes 20 meters, it's the same amount of thread, but it's much shorter, so it's thicker.
It's thicker.
So
right.
It's just the opposite.
And that totally makes sense for me. Like, I have to kind of picture it in my head, because we're talking about such tiny little numbers there. You know, it's like so thin, but I'm thinking if I had 12 inches of yarn and I put it on there, and then I had 12 inches of thread, and then I had 12 inches of like silk thread, like all of those would be totally different weights.
Exactly.
So to get to the same weight, I can totally see how I'd have to have a lot of the silk thread. So that's why there's a bigger number as it gets smaller.
See, and there's another complication. And a 40 weight filament thread, like rayon, will have a different diameter than a 40 weight spun polyester, just because of the way they're made different.
Oh, interesting.
So,
right, which is why it's different if you use, like, I get a lot of questions about using embroidery thread that's 40 weight and polyester versus a actual sewing thread like the Metrosene Mettler Metrosene. Then that one is a 40 weight as well, but it will wear differently, and it's because of how it's spun as it's made, because they are for different purposes. So when we talk about, like, the needles are for different purposes, the pins are for different purposes, the same thing goes for thread, that it's not just polyester thread, it's polyester sewing thread, and not embroidery thread that we recommend.
Filament thread, spun thread, natural fibers, filament, you know.
Yeah,
it's very complicated.
There's a lot. So know that there's a difference. All right, so threads, needles, pins. Are we doing all right with questions?
Sure. We are. Actually, every time I had a question ready to go, you guys answered it. So
okay.
we're doing great.
Awesome. So one of the other things, we'll talk about the Wonder Clips. So Wonder Clips are one of those tools that just about everybody has in their stash, and if you don't, you should get them. Just going to put these up here for you. So these are Wonder Clips. We often refer to them just as fabric clips, and then they have tiny ones, which I don't ever use with Cuddle. I use them for paper piecing, and they have these guys, which are the jumbo clips. Okay, so these are 1 inch. Is that right? Yep.
Yes.
And if you look on the back, so this is a cool thing about the Wonder Clips, is they actually have measurements on there. So it's 1/4, 1/2, 3/4, 1 inch. All right, so if you're trying to measure something, this is a great way of doing it. The back is the same on here. Tell me what those marks are. Do you remember?
I think 1/8 of an inch on those.
Okay, I think that's what it is. So this one would be 1/4 and 1/8, and you can clip it on there for when you're doing your binding. Okay, so these work really, really well. Some people use them when they're making their throws. I prefer the pins because the pins hold it more, I don't know, sure for me that I prefer them. But I love these guys. If you have not used the jumbo clips, these work so well for putting on your Cuddle binding. All right, and I think we used them in one of the videos that we did last year about how to do Cuddle binding. So you're going to find them, they're in a pack that looks like this. Okay, they do have a new pack that I have somewhere in my stash of stuff that actually includes some big ones, some middle ones, and some little bitty ones.
Oh, the
multi-pack.
Yeah.
And those are a little bit hard to find because they just came out pretty recently, but it's a super cool way of getting all of them if you are new to Wonder Clips. They really are fabulous. This is another thing that we talk about in classes a lot, because people will buy the ones off of, you know, that big chain on the internet, and and they are not as good, so they will fall apart. These babies are delightful, and I've had Wonder Clips for years and years and years and never had one break on me. Okay, so they're good. Anything else we need to know about Wonder Clips?
Yeah, there's something really kind of off the wall. I had one of my students once. There's a hole in the back of this.
Oh.
And what she does is she puts her unfinished projects, or, you know, her UFOs. She clips her UFOs on these and then hangs it on the wall.
Oh, how ingenious.
Or patterns. I mean, it's just amazing, all the different uses for Wonder Clips.
Totally. I didn't realize there was a hole there. That's a great idea, because that's what I do with quilting, is I use the Wonder Clips a lot to hold them together. And when I've done things where, like, you're doing rows and all I'll write on them. So some of them, none of these have numbers on them, but sometimes they do like ABC, or I'll have the 1, 2, 3, 4, and I put them like, these are the rows I need to sew together. I never thought about the hole. Does the little one have the hole? Just the big one?
It's just
the big one.
Just the big one does.
That's great.
Yeah, that's really cool. And another great thing to keep in mind for the Wonder Clips is if you're sewing with vinyl or leather or something like that, where you don't want to leave a hole. These are great.
Right. For the, what do they call it? The plastic coated fabric.
That's right.
You're gonna make raincoats and that sort of stuff out of. You want to make sure anything that you want to be waterproof, you don't want to stick the pins in. And to get through that fabric, I often, like, this is before I knew better, is I would use like those thick Clover pins, and then it leaves like a hole in the fabric, which kind of negates the whole idea of trying to make it waterproof. So use the clips instead. They're wonderful for that. You can get them in cards, which come with 20 in a pack, I believe. And then you can get the box. And I always tell people, get the box, because you're going to need them all eventually. Okay. So they have big ones, they have multicolor and just plain ones.
Yeah. And the new variety pack has all 3 sizes. It has 6 of the jumbos.
Okay.
And it has 10 of the originals, and it has 10 of the new minis.
The tiny ones, yeah. And the tiny ones kind of curve down and have like a little point, which
it's
makes
like an eighth of an inch. Yeah,
yeah, it's real little.
So for really detailed work, you know, paper piecing.
Paper piecing is what I've used them for, and they work really well.
Your audience has hit on the fact that they also keep your chips fresh.
They keep your chips fresh, exactly.
Well, you know, they keep the charging cords for your phone together, and you can hang those up.
All these things, yeah, they're great. I love them.
Our RV living just got like 3 times better.
I need to find all my jumbo clips now. I only had one in my pack. I need to
We have
find
a few
them.
around here. We can get
All right, great. You're just going to find them all over the RV. That's hilarious. This is great. Okay, so these are hand sewing needles. So we'll move to that too, because we talked about machine needles. These are hand sewing needles. So this is one variation. You have a few different types. I chose these because I've used these with the gold heads, and I like them. Because this is a 9 and this is a 10, and they are very different, but these are 9 sharps and these are 10 quilting. From what I've seen, quilting ones are really short, and these are applique sharps, and they're longer, and I like those.
That's right.
Why would I want to have such a different length of needle?
The interesting thing about the quilting needles, or they call them betweens, is they're short enough because you're doing little tiny stitches, and so they're easy to maneuver, and they don't bend because they're short.
Oh,
okay. And
that explains things. I will say, I bend my needles all the time. Like all of my needles will be like this by the time I'm done.
And the sharps and the applique needles, they're a little longer, but we use those just for general sewing.
Okay.
But if you're doing needle folded applique, they're back, and so you can actually fold the fabric under and serve them, so they're really easy to handle.
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly what I use.
Something to keep in mind is the needle sizes for hand sewing needles is the opposite of sewing machine needles. Okay, so I think of those just like thread.
Take notes.
The higher the number, the finer the needle.
Okay. So if I had a 6 here, it would be a thicker needle, more like a tapestry or something like that. Okay. And how high do they go up?
They go up to around 15 and 18, and and it's just different styles. You know, the quilting needle will only go to like a 12. Right. And start lower. But
got it. But like beading needles, they get really skinny too.
They're very fine. Exactly. Yeah. There's beading needles, and there's all kinds of different needles. And again, as we started out, having the right needle for whatever you're trying to accomplish is really important. Right.
So the sharps would be a good one to have, just generally speaking. Yes.
I have an audience question. I actually have been holding this one for a little while.
Do it.
It's more of a speculative question. When you're sewing embroidery in the hoop, the question is, do you have any needles or pins actually that are curved? Because sometimes when you're trying to pin something right next to the hoop, it's hard because the heads are basically in the way, the hoop is in the way.
Okay, so let me rephrase just real quick, so in case people couldn't hear. So basically he's asked, somebody wanted to know about doing embroidery in the hoop, and if there were pins that were kind of curved. So, and I've used needles that are curved like that for doing like upholstery and that sort of thing. Are there pins that are curved so that you could kind of get in and up with it being super flat? And do you guys have anything like that?
No, we don't have any curved pins.
Yeah,
not needles.
Not needles.
Pins.
I only brought it up because I thought that's an interesting comment from the consumer side about what might be needed.
That is. Well, and I was going to say it might be a new product next time we talk.
Right, exactly.
There we go, guys.
Yeah, because I can see that, because you have it on the bed of the machine and you're trying to keep it flat, and trying to get that in and back up is sometimes hard. So maybe the fork pins. You guys have fork pins.
The genesis of a lot of the tools you see here are people just like our viewers right now, or come up with an idea like, wouldn't it be nice like fork pins?
Right.
Do we need something like this would really be nice, or something like,
Right.
you know, jelly rolls come out and then people think of all kinds of tools
Yes.
to do things with jelly rolls.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
yeah,
Exactly.
so thanks for the idea.
So you never know. We'll see. So as of now, no. Those fork pins might, just because they might work okay, because do we have any of the fork pins? We might be able to get somebody to get some. They I don't have them because I don't use them with Cuddle at all, but they are 2 pins that come out and kind of have like a U at the top, and that bends a little, and they're kind of bendy, so I kind of feel like they might hold and work. So if you haven't tried those, give those a shot.
And those are really a secure pin, because actually when you put it in, you're putting in 2 pins, and then those pins are held together.
Right.
So,
right. And they are really good. I just don't use them for Cuddle fabric because they're not.
They're great for fashion if you're putting a pocket on or trying to match fabric.
Matching
patterns
seams
and stuff like that. They'll hold it perfectly. So when you sew it, nothing slides.
Right. Exactly. See, a use for everything. All right. What if we just got, this, because we get asked all the time. I get asked all the time about my pin caddy. Here we go.
Oh yeah. That's magnetic.
Ta-da.
Boom. Yeah. And it lines the heads up.
Yep, it picks them up and it lines them up so you can just reach in and grab it.
You've got this little channel right here, so you can get your finger under and grab what you want.
Exactly.
I mean,
this is where my needle usually ends up being, is down in here.
Smart design.
Yeah, it's almost like we put thought into that one.
Yeah, almost. So these are great little tools. I also have a Zirkle, which is a bigger version of it, but I really like this one because this one is easy to pick up. So this is what I use with my machine a lot when I'm sewing, and if you've watched before, I kind of just throw my pins to the side of the machine, and then at the end I'll like pick them all up, and this works really, really well.
You know, if you travel or go to classes, you can throw this in your bag, in your little kit, and take off, go hop in the RV and go on vacation.
Exactly.
You have it all with you.
And they all stay in there because it has this little cover on it. Okay, which is a nice feature, especially like you said, for traveling with it. So fabulous little thing that I like. Talked about pens. So when we're marking with on the Cuddle fabric, a lot of times, like when we're doing a self-binding blanket or we're tracing out stuffed animal patterns, I want to trace it on the back of the fabric. So I always try to like make my marks first, and then I cut it out. So a lot of times I just use the good old Sharpie, which is why we have it. Okay, because I love this little Sharpie. I said, look it has Sew Together Tuesday with my name. Okay, so I just use these. Excuse me. I usually use these when I'm marking on the back of my fabric. If I'm working with a fabric that is light, then I want to use something that will not be shown. So if I use a black on a white fabric or a yellow fabric, I have to be really careful to cut off the ink. So that's what I do, is when I cut it, I make sure that I cut off the black because you'll see it. But there are other options, and these are some of the ones that I like. So this is the blue. This one is super cool. So it has the water erasable up here. Okay, it's just a little pen. So I use variations on this one, which is just a blue pen, which will work really well on a light fabric like light yellow, the mint, white, all that good stuff. This one is, if I remember right, this is the air erasable. You just want to make sure that you get the thick, okay? The thin one will catch on the back of the Cuddle. So get the thick one. It's just a regular felt tip pen basically at that point, and it will draw it right along there really nicely. I will tell you, if you use this one, you have to cut it right away or use those lines right away because it's air erasable. And I have definitely let it sit too long.
Yeah.
And then your marks just go away.
If you're prone to have a lot of UFOs, that's not the pen you want to use.
That, exactly.
You'll be always remarking.
You will have to check it again, do it again, do it again. Okay, so this is great for when you're making marks really quick. So even if we're doing like the self-binding blanket, if you've done that class with me and we're making our corner marks, then this works really well because you're just going to mark it, sew it, and then the marks all go away. So some people don't really like using a Sharpie on their fabric. It makes them scared. I live dangerously. It's fine. But these are 2 options for marking on the back of it without it being a permanent thing, and especially if it's a light color fabric. All right. So many fun tools. It's super fun to go and see like the whole breadth of them here because there's so many that I want. We'll talk about that too. Thanks. They also have a rotary cutter. You guys have a 45 and a 60, you said?
We have an 18, a 28, 45, and 60. Okay.
They've got all those sizes. Yeah. I love the little ones for working with the embrace double gauze that we have. So that works to cut like curvy bits really, really well. The 18, you said, right?
18.
Yeah, works really well. Otherwise, I cut all of my stuff with a 45 or a 60. So works really well for cutting the Cuddle 3 because it doesn't make very much mess at all. So I use a blade a lot for the Lux Cuddle that you guys have probably seen. It's an Alpha blade, and I like that. It's like a box cutter, basically. But this works really nicely for the Cuddle 3. So any of the flat cuddles, this will work great. Also, what was the one that we just cut the other day? Brooklyn. It was like a denser one.
Oh, yeah.
And it would work really well. The shearling, any of that's a little bit denser, the really fluffy ones I do differently.
A quick note, real quick, on the diameter of the blade. The 28s, like you mentioned, are great if you have a real short radius of turn. You can really tight little corners.
Mm-hmm.
The large one, like the 60, is great for long, straight strips.
Yep.
But if you think about it, if you take the little one and you cut long strips with it, it's going to wear out sooner because it turns more often.
Totally true.
So you actually get more, if you're cutting long strips, get the longer blade because it will last a lot longer.
That absolutely makes sense. Yeah. And when you're working with the Cuddle, I know a lot of people prefer the 60 because you can kind of get through all that nap and all that good stuff.
And it cuts straighter too.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to need an insider tip about the pens. Is there any way to rejuvenate either of those pens if you leave the lid off? Or is it just done?
Are you done?
Oh, it depends on how long the lid is off because the water saw, they're both like felt tip pens, just like anything. So if it's off a long time, it'll completely dry out.
It'll completely dry. And there's no way to
there's no
rehydrate it.
Yeah, there's no refills.
Okay. So make sure you put the lids on. Yeah, I've done that too. I actually had a pen, a felt tip pen that I used for a long time, and it had a crack in the side of it, and so it would dry it out that way. I'd like put the lid on, and then I remember one time I like put the lid on and it totally slid down all the way because it had a crack all the way up the side. And I couldn't figure out why it was getting dry. That's why. Speaking of pens, this is not a pen.
It's a fabric folding pen.
This is one of my favorites. So this is the one that came out of my thing. So I don't have the little cute bottle, but there's
this one you do refill.
You do refill this one. It has a little bottle of magic juice that goes with it. When you buy it, it comes with this and a little magic juice. And you fill this up, and I fill it up with, I don't know, most of the way. You put in a few drops of that little magic juice each time, and then it has this little felt tip that fills up with water. So the juice from in here, right? So then you're just going to run this right along the fabric and it folds over. This is one of those tools. I brought it out because when we got here, I was like, oh, I hadn't put that one on the list. Sorry, guys. Okay. Jackie and Michael are like, you didn't put this one on there. I'm like, I know, sorry. It's a fabric folding pen. Okay. This one is super great for the Embrace Double Gauze, and that's what I use it for. So I don't really use it with Cuddle, but it's one of those pens that when I found out about it, you guys were doing a demo about English paper piecing and doing right along the edges of the paper, and it would fold over really nicely. But it works really well if you're doing hems on anything. And you just measure your hem, you draw right along the side of your ruler, it flips over super easy.
Yeah, just finger press it in place.
Yeah, it's great. So it's one of those tools that a lot of people bought because they saw the demo and then they took it home and they were like, what do I do with this now? That's what you do with it. Okay, it's a super great tool. I found a lot of people who have it and then don't have any idea why they bought it. So that's why I threw that one in there. Okay. Other tools that we use a lot, you see me use the point turner a lot. This one has the like Haramarca sort of style up here, and then the point down at the bottom. Oh, sorry. It's a point-to-point turner. And I really like it because it has the pointy end and it has the round end. So I use this a lot when I'm doing like stuffed animals or that sort of thing and trying to push out the edges to make sure everything gets pushed out. So a lot of times people say you can just use a chopstick. I think this works much better. Okay, and it's because it's rounded and it will actually push the seam all the way out and not drag along the edge. So this is a great one. Insight on this?
Yeah, well, if you're doing like fashion work, if you have this point is great for really, acute angles like a collar.
Like a collar.
Something like that. But this one, if you're pushing it out of pocket, you can actually push with the grain of your fabric so you don't stretch your fabric at all. Yep. And then there's a long sweeping edge, like if you're doing pillowcases, you could straighten the seam out for those.
Right.
And you can use it flat for finger pressing or turn around, and it's a great hair marker too. So it does everything.
Yeah.
For you.
And if you haven't used a hair marker, a lot of times we use them in quilting, and I use this either end actually when I'm marking things on Cuddle 3. So on the flat Cuddle, I can totally drag that along it and it'll leave a mark, and then I can follow that to do some stitching. Okay. All right. This is the stiletto, which is not the stiletto that I use for like my binding and stuff, but this one is not as pointy Okay, so some people are really afraid of the point on Annie's. So that's the one I use a lot for the binding, and that point is really intense. So this, from what I know about it, this is what I've used it for, is that this point is not going to melt when it touches the iron.
It's a silicone tip.
So I basically, it protects your fingers, okay? So when we're doing ironing, because we are going to talk about how you can iron cuddle, okay? But you can iron we iron lots of things. And if you're a quilter, you're definitely doing that. And if you are like me, you have burned the end of your finger a lot. That's what I use this one for, okay? It's super good. This will hold things in place. It's nice. This will kind of grip things. So you can kind of hold things in place while you're doing other bits and fiddly things. For applique, I think it works really well because I can hold things where I want them.
You know, and sometimes when we're sewing, we're feeding our fabric underneath the needle, and we don't want the underneath seams to flip over.
Right.
You can actually hold this and hold your fabric right as it goes up.
As it goes right
to
up
the
to
needle.
it. Yep. Yeah.
And you can use either end of that for that.
Yeah.
So.
And it works really well. This one has a fairly good little point there, but not too sharp.
Yeah, so
and this one is the ironable.
Yeah, so this thing actually just saves your fingers.
Yeah, it just saves your fingers. Exactly.
Saver.
Keep them away from the sharp and hot things. Okay. All right. So sharp and hot things. Hot. So we get this question a lot, is can you iron cuddle? Yes, you can iron cuddle, iron it from the back. So when I tell people that they're just going to put on fusible interfacing, a lot of times people don't believe me that that's what you're going to do. This is a fusible double, and what do they call it? A web? That lightweight fusible web. I'm like, I don't know, the stuff that you put on the back of applique. Okay. So it's called Wonder Fuse. I have it in papers, and you said that it does come in like 8x10 sheets or something.
Yeah, it comes in 8x10 sheets, or this is an 18-inch by 3 yard.
Yeah. So this is the big boy, and then they have a smaller one that you can use little. And this is what I've used when I have done applique with cuddle, because you put it on the back of one, and then you can actually you can fuse it through. A lot of times, what I have done is I have ironed it onto once I've traced out the shape that I want to do onto the Wonder Fuse. I iron that onto the cuddle and I cut it out. Then I pull off the backing, and I usually just spray base because I don't want to put enough heat through the back that it's going to melt the fusible. So I use the spray base and stick that baby on there. It works beautifully because this stuff is so thin, because it's a web, that it doesn't make your applique super stiff.
That's right.
And when we have 2 layers of cuddle, if you have a stiff one in between, you have the stiff backing, then all of a sudden your applique doesn't have the same body and looseness of the rest of your blanket. So I found it really, really good. And I've used it a few different times on projects where you just iron on the back, and that web is really, really thin. Yeah. And I like that. So you want to make sure if you're ironing on cuddle with the Wonder Fuse or anything else, you want to make sure that you're using a medium heat iron. So there'll be one that says, oh no, the word just disappeared. Fake synthetics. I was like, fake fabric. Synthetics or polyester. Okay, those are the two, because those are not as hot. Do not use your cotton setting. Yeah, it will definitely cause all sorts of issues if you're not careful. So take the heat down just a little bit. It's going to work just fine. Okay, and don't iron it from the front. Iron it from the back, because a lot of the designs are heat set, which means that if you push heat on the front in a certain design, like the bottom of your iron generally has, you'll put that design right into your fabric. Not what we want. Okay, so we're going to iron it from the back, medium, totally doable, and it makes appliques really, really easy. What I found is, like I said, that web is soft and flexible, but it gives it enough body that it's easier to lay it down in position. It keeps the right shape. So that's why I use that.
Yeah, and it holds all the fiber. So when you cut around, you don't get any little frays or anything like that.
Yep.
And if you're doing layered applique, it's so fine that it doesn't add any bulk.
Right.
And it doesn't get stiff with age. So.
Right. Yeah, so you could do them where they
process.
overlap, and it's totally fine. It doesn't add weird stiffness, which I've definitely had from other things. Bodkins, we talked about bodkins. We have a couple of different kinds. We've used them for turning things out. So this is the one that I have. So this is just a regular flex and glide bodkin.
Trying to get the glare out.
Sorry, I can move it a little. Let me know.
Let me do.
Okay.
There it
Okay,
is.
you can see how flexible it is, which is great. You can use it for all sorts of things. This is the other one, and it has this nice point. We used these when we were at Cali to turn the legs of the Kimber Bear inside out. We clipped it, and then we were able to push it in and turn it around. But this one is also the same. It's super
Can you
flexible.
show us how that clip works?
Yes. So it is like this. So if you're going to use it for elastic or anything else, you basically clip it onto the end, snap that shut, and then it will not come off. So if you have tried to feed elastic through anything with a safety pin and lost that safety pin somewhere in between, This doesn't do that. Okay, this one will stay on there. It doesn't come undone, and totally works really nice. And you said the clip and glide is what it's called.
Glide.
Yeah.
And another interesting thing is it's long, so you can feed a lot of fabric on it.
Yes.
So it's really fast.
Yes. Yeah, you can get it through a lot faster than just a little safety pin.
And, it will not come off. So
and it will not come off. Because trying to get that repinned inside of the casing.
Oh, then you try to get both of them out.
Right. Right.
That's right.
Not fun.
No do-overs.
I have definitely taken stitches out to get it out because, yeah, I lost it in there. So there's another fun tool. Okay, so another couple of things that they came out with. One of them I hadn't seen really before, but one of them is super cool. Also the macaron. I use that in my other stitching. But anyway, this is a super fun little project that, or little product that they have that is, what's it called? The Quick Cut Thread Cutter?
Yep, it's the Quick Cut.
Can I open it?
Yes.
So let me show you this, because this was actually pretty cool. So one of the things with working with Cuddle is that you have to replace your blade a little more often because it is a rotary cutter, your rotary cutter blade, because it is polyester and it dulls your blade a little faster. Okay, so once you've gotten to the point that you've like taken out these blades, then you can get a whole stack of them. Well, this thing is a great thing because you can stick your blade in here. So this one has it already. See if I can get this to work. There we go. Maybe I can feel it loose. That's how it works, right? Like I did it once. I can feel it come loose. Go for it. I'll let the professional at it. There we go. Okay, this. So here is where your used blade goes. I think it's a new blade in here. They're nice enough to give you a new blade when you buy it. But this, you could totally just stick your blades in here. You put this guy back on. I'm going to get it all connected. Hold on. Get it in there. Come on, little guy. There we go. Okay, this little guy goes back in here. Basically, this will keep twisting. So it goes on here and you twist, 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 and it will move the blade around so that you get all of the use out of it. So you just keep pivoting this thing around the 12 points and you can just keep using this to cut your thread. So when you're chain piecing, your thread goes right over here. And where's my thread? We lost it. There it is. Let me show you. Because it works really, really well. See if we can get that guy to snap back in there. There, thank you. Ta-da.
Wow. How fast that is.
Okay, super great. So I used this recently before we moved out and hit the road. Then I was doing a bunch of chain piecing, and that's exactly what I did. So if you're doing anything where you want to cut your thread easily, that's it. If you're working on a machine that doesn't have a thread cutter, put this by the machine. Like, super easy. And I was super impressed. I think I called Hockey and I was like, look at this tool. This is amazing. Because the idea of having a bunch of extra rotary cutters that you're like, all right, now what? Like the fact that you could use it.
That's right.
I think is super cool.
It's always fun to find a tool that does great stuff for you in a lot of different ways.
Yes. And it's not something like, I feel like it uses stuff that I already like create, like my waste that actually gets used in a different way that I'm not just
You'll probably never buy a blade for that.
Never. Like no, because I'm just going to use all the ones that I've taken out and put in there. And they take a 45.
That's right.
Is what 45. It is. It's what we all have.
And almost everybody has a 45.
Exactly. It's what we all use. It's a great size. So, all right. So then we have one other product, and this is a new one from Clover that I haven't used. That's different.
This is just.
But I wanted him to talk about it.
It's just brand new. A lot of people are getting into punch embroidery, so we've come up with this new punch embroidery needle, and it comes with some adjustment rings, so you can set the needle length at 4 different lengths.
Oh.
So when you push it through your fabric, you can put loops. You can make it almost smooth up to 2-inch loops. So you can do all kinds of decoration.
Oh, interesting.
With it. So those aren't even in storage yet. They're so new. And then this is a special hoop for it. Because when you do punch embroidery, it's kind of hard to push it through the fabric. Use monk's cloth. Right. And so you have to have a hoop that is really secure. So this one actually it's set up with where the hoop fits down, you have inverse angles. So it holds it in place and you tighten up so it won't ever move. And it even has little legs on it, so you can stand it up 3.5 inches above your table. Oh, that's super cool. So you don't have to hold it. You can just do all your punch embroidery. Right. So so instead of doing all the work, you just do all the creating. Right. Which is always good. My daughter did a bunch of punch needle stuff, so I might have to get her a new
Yeah. So they're always coming out with new tools. How often do you guys have like releases of new tools?
We try to do things like every 6 months.
Okay.
If you sit down at one of our R&D meetings, we have this big spreadsheet and they have stuff that's years out that we're working on.
Yeah.
And every meeting, you see the item move up on the
Right.
spreadsheet.
Right.
And instead of just an idea, now it's this, now it's the same pricing and,
Right.
and then we release them. So.
Right. Because the idea, you were saying like, you'll get ideas from people, or I'm sure that internally, and we're like, oh, we should do a product about this.
Curved pins.
Right, exactly. So how does that process go? Because you take the idea and then you take it to a group and you discuss it.
I think we have R&D meetings at least every 6 months. We sit down and the folks that create this stuff in Japan sit down and look at. They show us what they're working on. We show them some ideas, and then we always work with a lot of designers and educators because they have a lot of good ideas too, and they test things out for us and say this would work better if it was like this. And so we try to get all the bugs worked out before we actually release a product.
That's very cool. I've always been super happy with it. And like we joked that, it's been asked, like, do you work for Clover? I work for Shannon Fabrics. I'm a national educator. I have just found that a lot of the tools that I have used and have worked really well have been Clover tools. And I feel like the quality is super good, which is why I wanted to talk to you about it. And I knew that you had a ton of information. You guys do a thing called Tool School.
We do.
Right? And explain what that is, because is that something that consumers can sign up for?
It's interesting because we've gone to some shows, and as you've mentioned, people will buy our products and take it home and go, what do I do with it? And we've been places where we're demonstrating something, and somebody will say, I have that, but I didn't know it did that. So we do. It's not an instruction, but we take one tool or a group of similar tools every 2 weeks, and we just give you an introduction to it. We tell you what it does, and then we describe the tool in detail. And if you're a shop owner, we give you little ideas on how to sell the tool in your shop.
Got it. And how do they sign up for that?
Just go to clovertoolschool.com or just the Clover website, and you just click on Tool School and you can sign up. And we have a library of them. You can go back. I think we just published the 149th. So there's 100. So you can look up anything for any type of knitting products, rotary cutters, pins, needles. There's something in there that describes all these products and what they do. Yeah,
I subscribe to it. It comes in my email, and I'm always kind of interested because you kind of just filter through like stuff like I'm not a knitter, or I don't really do yarn arts, so those kind of just like go aside. But then there was one, it was a while ago, that was about the different pins, and then it talks about the applique pins, and then the fork pins, and blah blah blah, like all of these different pins and why you would use each one of them. And I feel like that information, arming ourselves with that, helps us make better purchases, because like we've talked about, getting the right tools and the right notions for the project that you're doing is super important. But the only way to really do that is to kind of educate ourselves, and it's through classes, through videos, through all that sort of stuff, things like today.
And if you have a shop or a blog, feel free to cut and paste. You can use any of that information, because anything that that helps the end user, we want everybody to be excited about creating and doing things. And
I always say, like, what my job is to make people love sewing. I want people to love sewing, and I want it to be easier. I want it to be fun. I want it to be not stressful. So finding the right tools to be able to do that is super important. Do we have any other questions in there that we need to do?
Gosh, I think we're pretty good at this point.
Right. Do you have anything else you want to add?
No, I think I really appreciate being here. This has really been kind of fun for me.
Good. We have a ton of fun doing this. I really love it. I was going to show you guys earlier and I forgot. So let me show you really quick, because I want to show you about the double pinning and the difference with the pinning. So this will be information probably for you too. We're going to do the swoop, not onto the floor though this time. We'll just do a swoop. But I wanted to show you, because when we're doing with when we're dealing with the pins, this becomes really important. I just want to give you an example, because when we're doing a luxe throw, for instance, we're going to have 2 layers that we're going to pin together. Okay, so here's my one that is the 2 colors, right? The red and the peachy color. All right, and I can just put that through over here. I'm going to do a couple of them, and I'll show you. This is how we do double pinning. So I will pin parallel to the raw edge, and then I come back over and I do a set of pins up here. And this will help hold the fabric in place as you're sewing. If you've watched Sew Together Tuesday before, you've seen this a million times, because this is the way I do it. Okay, just like this. Now these work just fine going through these layers, because remember, these are the medium weight is what I call them. Because there's the lightweight and heavyweight, medium weight.
And
in
what,
my
I
mind.
want to back up really quick. What
Yeah.
was going on with the second layer of pins? You pull the first pin out
Right.
while you're sewing, but you leave the second row in.
Correct. So as I've pinned it, if I'm pinning the edge of the whole throw or a scarf or anything else where it has a nice long edge and 2 layers, I'm going to pin it like this. So it has this first row is all here. This second row is what holds it in position. And the reason I do this, I'm going to put a couple more in just so I can show you, is that it will hold the fabric better. So what happens is as I'm sewing, if I don't have this second row in, the fabric will move like this. You can see it scoots all over the place when I'm sewing it, which is not fun. If I'm sewing here, like as you said, Hawk, I'll come along here. I'll take these pins out as I'm sewing. And even as I take these pins out, I can't get the fabric to move because of these pins being in here. So the fabric still is not moving, not like over here. Okay. So it makes a total difference in how well the fabric stays together. It's not going to shift on me. I found that if I pin this way, the same thing happens in between here as this all gets to move in between. Okay, so then I'm fighting this fabric the whole time. So I pin it the other direction. And I found that these pins work super duper well. You can see they slide through no problem. Okay, if I'm doing something that is a little more, we'll get some more layers over here. Okay, so this one is 4 layers of cuddle, which will happen if you're doing like a strip quilt. You'll get a huge bunch of them in there. Okay, so if I have this one, I kind of have to work it back up a little bit because it's not as thick. So it doesn't have the, I want to say the strength to get back through. But what I found is if I use these heavyweight dudes, they're now men. Okay, I can just, I mean, look at it, goes through all 4 layers, no problem.
Yeah.
Okay, it just like whoop, right through all of them. Okay, as I hit a spot, there we go. Okay, so it will just go right through all of these guys. Okay, it's fabulous. Move it up. Okay. The only thing I will tell you is that I have found that if I accidentally get basting spray on these, they don't slide through as nice.
And that pretty much goes for everything.
That's my
if you
problem.
Get basting spray on something,
it won't work as well.
Nothing works good with basting
yeah,
spray.
nothing works as well except for, you know, whatever you're basting. So it's going to be the same thing. You're going to do the same type of pinning if I'm going through all these layers, and it's going to work exactly the same, but I'm no longer fighting all of these layers. Okay, and you can see how flat that keeps it. So I will say that if you use a bendier pin, all of this becomes like this, kind of wavy. So using the heavier pins makes a big difference. And you can see it just slides right through. So if you're fighting with your pins at all, this is the first place to go, is get good pins, okay? I just wanted to show you the difference in the pinning technique and how it actually works really, really well for the cuddle fabric. So I will continue to use Clover pins always for my work with the cuddle fabric because they're great, okay? I think that's it. Clover Tool School, sign up for it.
Sure.
They've got all the other stuff. You know, they've got obviously a YouTube channel and Facebook and Instagram and all of those things.
Yeah.
So make sure you follow them there. Follow us. Good. I'm Teresa Coates, National Educator for Shannon Fabrics. You are?
Steve Butler, Director of Education, Clover.
That's right. So thank you so much for joining us. We will be at Road to California this week, right? You'll be in the booth?
Yes.
All right. I will be in Cindy's Custom Creations booth over at Road to California. Come and join us there. We'll be doing demos the whole week. I can't wait to see you there, except when I'm doing classes.
Of course, you're teaching classes.
Unless I'm doing classes, and then I'll be teaching classes, and Hawk will show you how to pin. So that'll be great. I can't wait to see you there. We'll be back next week. Do we have a winner? Ellen, do we have a winner? We'll pick a winner for our beginner box, and we'll let you, I think we'll let you choose. I think it's how they do it. And the winner is Rebecca B. So congratulations, Rebecca. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for sharing the video with your sewing friends. Please remember to subscribe to our YouTube to get notifications of when we go live, or you can do that on Facebook as well. You can watch in both places. We're super happy to have you. We'll be back next week. We are still on tour, so we are still on our Sew Together Tuesday on the road tour. We will be for a while. We'll be at Mole Queen in Tempe, Arizona next week. We'll be making, I was going to bring it and I forgot. We're making conversation hearts with cute little phrases embroidered on them. It's going to be super fun. I'm sure I'm going to use some Clover tools. It will be great. So we'll be in Tempe next week. Mole Queens, join us there or join us online. We'll be there. Until then, happy sewing. Bye.
Bye.